Hello and welcome to Back to the Science. I'm Dr. Susan Oliver and I'm a scientist, and back there is Cindy Oliver and she's a dog. Now, I'm a bit late to the party on this, but about 2 weeks ago, a lot of people were getting very excited, and not in a good way, about a study showing that trace amounts of COVID vaccine mRNA were detected in breast milk. However, if you stick around, you'll find that it's not just me who's late to the party. How's that for a teaser? But first, let's have a look at one of the tweets. Oh, look, almost 2 years after being assured that the mRNA stays in the deltoid and that the needle emoji is safe for breastfeeding mothers, is discovered in breast milk, and nobody knows what problems it might cause. And of course, the tweet includes the original tweet about the paper from JAMA Pediatrics, which states, trace amounts of COVID-19 vaccine mRNAs were detected in the breast milk of some lactating women. Caution is warranted regarding breastfeeding infants younger than 6 months in the first 2 days after maternal COVID vaccination. Now, before we get into the paper, I would just like to address the claim in the tweet that we were assured almost 2 years ago that mRNA couldn't leave the deltoid. You may recall that in a video I made about a month ago about misinformation around vaccines in pregnancy, I mentioned that a lot of people were sharing some old, outdated information from the Pfizer approval document and claiming it was new information and vaccines were no longer recommended in pregnancy. In addition to information on pregnancy, the document also contained information on breastfeeding. So this is an excerpt from the document, which has been publicly available since December 2020. It is unknown whether BNT162b2 is excreted in breast milk. Therefore, it is recommended that BNT162b2 should not be administered to women who are breastfeeding. So, as you can see, we were never told that the vaccine can't leave the deltoid. In fact, we were specifically told that it could be possible. But as I mentioned, the information in this document is outdated. And of course, vaccination is now recommended for women who are breastfeeding. So does the information in this new paper mean that the recommendation will need to be reevaluated? Well, it's highly unlikely because despite all the fanfare about the new paper, it's not the first paper to find mRNA from vaccines in breast milk. It was shown in this paper, which was published in August 2021, where they detected low levels of vaccine mRNA in 4 out of 40 samples. And it was shown in this paper from January 2022, where it was detected in 5 out of 309 breast milk samples. So, as I alluded to at the beginning of the video, people who are up in arms about this paper are a bit late to the party. It is also worth mentioning that some previous papers that examined breast milk for vaccine mRNA didn't find any. For example, this paper here, which was also published in JAMA Pediatrics. So let's look at the new paper and what it shows, what it doesn't show, and what they didn't look for. So this is the paper. And at the time I took this screenshot, it had been viewed 163,680 times, which is more than double the number of times that the paper that didn't find any vaccine mRNA in breast milk has been viewed, even though the other paper has been online for more than a year longer, which is curious. Now, you'll notice there's a correction on the paper. That was just because the original paper had some incorrect dates in it and a few other typos. What they did in this study was they took expressed breast milk samples from 11 women at various time points up to 5 days after they had been vaccinated. And they used PCR to see if they could detect any vaccine mRNA in both the whole breast milk as well as various concentrated components of the breast milk. Now, I did see a video about this study last night from Dr. John Campbell claiming that they didn't test any samples after 45 hours. That's simply wrong. The methods section clearly states that they took samples for up to 5 days. This is what they found. In 5 of the 11 participants, vaccine mRNA was detected in extracellular vesicles, and in 3 of these participants, it was also detected in the whole milk. And an extracellular vesicle is basically a membrane-bound nano-sized particle that carries things like protein or RNA in bodily fluids. They didn't find vaccine mRNA in any other components of breast milk that they analysed, and they didn't find it in any samples taken more than 45 hours after vaccination. The likely reason they found mRNA in more extracellular vesicle samples than in the whole breast milk samples is because the extracellular vesicles were extracted and concentrated before being subject to PSR. Now, it's important to note that you can't determine from PCR whether the mRNA is complete or whether you are just finding fragments. So this doesn't mean they found functional mRNA. We know, for instance, that mRNA is rapidly broken down before being released into the bloodstream for processing by the liver and kidneys and then excreted. Now, I'm not saying that this is what happened in this case. We simply don't know because the experiments haven't been done. The largest concentration of vaccine mRNA that they found in any sample of whole milk was 11.7 picograms per milliliter, which is a very small amount. To put it into perspective, it's like the amount of water you could collect in this teacup compared to 340 million litres of water dumped by a storm. And for those of you in America, that's about 92 million US gallons. And by the way, we have lots of storms in Sydney at the moment, hence my wet weather gear. And yeah, I know I don't really need to wear it inside. Another way of looking at the quantity of mRNA detected is that to get the amount of mRNA present in a pediatric dose for a 6-month-old baby, which is 3 micrograms, you would need to consume more than 1,000 cups of breast milk, which is just a bit more than a baby drinks each day. Now, there are a number of things that they didn't look for in the study, which is fine because no study looks at everything. There are a number of relevant things, though, that have been found in another study. So we'll have a quick look at that study now. So this is the paper. And in this study, they looked at 50 mothers and their 50 babies. All of the mothers were vaccinated while they were breastfeeding their babies, and they did not stop breastfeeding after vaccination. Firstly, they looked to see if any adverse events had occurred in the babies following the vaccination of their mothers. And remember, these are adverse events that occurred in the babies following vaccination of the mother, not necessarily adverse events caused by the vaccination. These are the verbatim responses from the mothers. My baby seemed a little tired. He started pooping a lot, and it was more sour-smelling diarrhea like poops. I don't know if there is any correlation. It could have been a fluke, but both my infant and I slept through the night for the first time the night after I received the first dose of the vaccine. He had some diaper rash, but likely unrelated. Rash on the face / worsening of baby acne. Disrupted sleep, waking at night when he usually doesn't, more fussy than normal. Now, there was no control group, so we don't know how the incidence of these events compares with the general incidence of things like this occurring, but clearly there were no serious adverse events in any of the babies. And there are a number of other studies with similar results. They also analysed the breast milk from a subset of 13 mothers, both before and after vaccination, to see if there was any increase in the amount of PEG. Pegylated proteins are components of the nanoparticles for both vaccines. So if they did see an increase, it would suggest that the nanoparticles could be in the milk. However, they didn't see any significant increase in the levels of PEG. Something to note is that PEG is present in many cosmetics, so will sometimes be in breast milk, regardless of vaccination status. And I'm not quite sure how well you can see this on the video, but you can see that a few of the women did have PEG in their breast milk prior to vaccination. They also looked for antibodies in the serum of 8 of the infants in the trial and found no evidence of an immune response to the vaccine in these infants, which means if any mRNA from the vaccine had been present in the breast milk, it didn't have any effect on the babies. Now, obviously, I'm not an expert on breastfeeding or babies. I am just covering what the science says. However, there are experts like the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists or the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and of course, every country has their own association like this. These associations have evaluated all the research, not just the studies that I have shown, and their advice is that it is safe to be vaccinated while breastfeeding. And I'll provide a link to the relevant pages so you can read them yourselves. Now, one thing you may be wondering is, what about if you actually have COVID? Can the virus get into breast milk? This systematic review was performed in August 2020, and SARS-CoV-2 RNA was found in the breast milk of a small proportion of SARS-CoV-2 positive mothers. Some of the children of those mothers did also test positive for SARS-CoV-2, but that doesn't mean that they got it from the breast milk because it's a respiratory virus after all. This study was completed after the systematic review, and in this case, they specifically looked to see if any of this SARS-CoV-2 RNA they found was actually infectious. And the good news is it wasn't. So although SARS-CoV-2 RNA is sometimes found in breast milk of SARS-CoV-2 positive mothers, it's unlikely to lead directly to infection in babies. So, in summary, people getting all hot under the collar about this paper are a bit late to the party. We've known that vaccine mRNA can sometimes be detected in trace amounts in breast milk for over a year. The mRNA was only detected in trace amounts and was not detected beyond 45 hours after vaccination. And the authors did not determine if the mRNA was actually still active. If you'd like to look further into the data I've presented, I've provided links in the video's description. And please remember this video is about the science, but you shouldn't take it as medical advice. For that, you should speak to your medical practitioner. If you've got this far, thank you for listening. And if you've liked or commented on the video, double thank you, because that helps the algorithm and means that more people will see the video. And of course, thank you to everyone who has bought me a coffee. I really appreciate your support. I will be continuing to make videos about the science, so if you'd like to see them, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.